kind of worried that maybe only my siblings, I mean, my kids were going to be here. So it's nice to see all of you and some really good and old friends too. So it's a real, it's a pleasure that you're here. Thank you very much. I was had meant to look up something that was written about me on the internet before I came, so I could know what to talk about. Because I'm kind of forgetful sometimes. But I didn't, so we're just gonna go off the top. I have been making face jugs for about a year, and it was a period time when I was not able to work on the power tools, which was the work that I was doing previously, because my seizures had increased dramatically, and I was feeling kind of disconnected from art. I felt like I enjoyed making the face jugs, but I felt like I was like a fraud as a folk artist. I mean, we got an MFA. I was a teacher, but I didn't really feel like I was making fine art. That was the feeling I had with it. And then Joe got me started in a whole new direction, which I have continued to move in that direction since then. And it literally changed my life, and I think created a space for me to be sane. I am just so deeply appreciative of Joe and what he gave me. He didn't know what he was giving me when he was 5 years old, but he was giving me just a tremendous gift. It's a gift of life, literally, for me. And when I was originally showing that work, it went to a couple of places. It showed in some small universities around the state, and I had both Joe's and my name on the show, on the information about the show. I got contacted by a couple of big name ceramic galleries, one in Atlanta and one in New York, and they both wanted to carry the work. There was one person show first in Atlanta, and the gallery owner said, and I told him, okay, I want this is about me and my son. And they said, no, nobody's gonna pay money, what kind of money we're gonna ask for a 5-year-old's artwork. This has to be about you. And so we're not gonna put his name on. And I succumbed to that, and I felt bad about that from that moment on. It bothered me, and I felt like I had something to make up to Joe. And so this is something that makes me feel so good to have this show and to have this catalog and to have all you here, and for this to be an expression of my gratitude for my son. And just, guys, I'm just, say something, Joe.
I guess when I was younger, I felt my dad's artwork was too neat. So I kind of had to destroy it a little bit. Open up a new path for him to create artwork.
Yeah, I mean, destroy is probably not the best word, but it's semi-accurate. Because I would work on his face and I'd give it to him, and then he would just be, with two hands, go in and he was splashing these colored slips on him and sticking stuff in it, and it was like there was no respect at all for the face. The face was just, it was just a canvas to him to stick stuff into. And to me, I didn't feel like I had that freedom. I just didn't have that freedom to do that. And And when Joe decided that he was going to stop doing this work with me, which he did after about a year and a half, he just told me he didn't want to do it anymore. But I wanted to keep going in the same in the same direction, and so and I have. But if you look at my work, I mean, I never could do. I still can't do this. I mean. I kind of work around the face, or sometimes I will wipe out half the face, but you know, I can't do what Joe did. He had a freedom and a creative recklessness that I admire, and I think the work is really, really, really strong. I kept all this for all these years and I had them on a shelf in my bedroom, big shelf where I faced it from my bed, and my plan all along was a show like this for Joe. So I want to thank Wim for making it possible, and for writing such nice things about us. Made me sound so like smart.
Do what I can.
So Joe, afterwards, for years and years, he used to always say, if the discussion came up about Joe working with me, he would say, "I made my dad famous," and and he still says that. You know, we're talking about doing this show. He's like, yeah, you know, he just say, "Yeah, I made you famous." You know, it's like, and you know, I don't really think. I think that my fame is maybe overrated in my son's eyes, and also that the directions that I was going in. I mean, I'll give him some credit for a lot of things, but I mean, I make myself, and I think he knows that.
Yeah, but I guess I didn't make you famous, but I opened up like a door to make you famous.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Yeah, okay.
I made it a possibility.
Yeah, right. The thing is that I was I had got a master's fine arts in ceramics. I studied ceramics all my life, and I was always taught that, you know, clay shrinks. If you're going to put two pieces of clay together, they have to be close to the same moisture content, and you got to, you know, go through all this scoring and slipping, and you got to do things to make clay stick to clay. And that fired clay, you can't stick fired clay into wet clay. That doesn't work, because the fired clay is not going to shrink. The wet clay is going to shrink around it, and it's going to create all kinds of cracking and breaking, and the piece is going to fall apart. So I never really thought that this was possible. I mean, it's just like what he was doing to me was an impossibility. So yeah, he definitely opened up a door that I don't think I would have gone through or even known was there had he not done that. Joe went on to make a lot of other really nice face jugs. He's made a lot of good face jugs. I sold several of his pieces at the Atlantic Folk Art Festival one time, and then I remember early in the day, I sold more of his than I sold of mine, and you know, and he's just like strutting around, and you know, he's and he spent all his money buying art too. Bought a lot of art, but he's gotten, I don't know, he's grown up and he's gotten all these things going on, and his girlfriend and. In college, and he hasn't made any face jugs. Would come into the studio and work with me for 3 years now. But he's told me when we set up to do this show, he told me that he wanted to come back and make some more. So I'm excited about that. I gotta drag him in there.
Hey Joe, so when you were working on these things, when you were making those as a kid, you know, did you have any sense of what you were trying to do? Were you trying to make something scary or something funny? Did you know at all?
I've been to so many art galleries in like my lifetime and seen so many different artwork that I think I just want to do something like completely different that no one's ever done.
But you were only 4 then.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but like, I don't know.
He went to his first opening when he was like 3 weeks old, you know, so he had
Yeah.
Quick learner. Yeah.
But I mean, were you trying to do something scary or something funny, or what? Do you know what you were trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to stick things in like eyes and noses. I know that for a fact. And, like even when like I started making face shows like a couple years, or like 5 years ago, I would still stick things in eyes. Like even recently, like either just like glass to like make it melt, or like a face in the eye, just like something that would fit. Or that one over there is like a teapot in the eye. So just like anything, I guess. Or like you would never expect something to be just to put it in. Like,
Well, I'm asking in part because, like I said to you a minute ago, there have been several people coming in here who wanted to see the show, who made a deliberate effort to see the show, but said, I would never want one of them in the house because they're scared.
yeah.
But the interesting thing, of course, is that while if you look at Peter's solo work later on, there are all kinds of reasons to find him sort of scary, because they also deal with Peter with your condition and you know, the sort of things you had to overcome, and you know, the day-to-day struggle with epilepsy and all these things. But with these original works, you know, that didn't really come into play yet. That was kind of more a kid having fun. So while they kind of look the same or similar to the later work of Peter, I might have a sort of a same sort of scare factor. They weren't meant to be really scary.
Yeah, no, I never like intentionally made it. I still don't think they're really that scary. Like, I don't know. I feel like.
Yeah, I'm still not getting the scary part either.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you are. I think that always says as much as about the onlooker
Yeah.
as the work, but nevertheless.
Joe likes certain things, you know. I remember one time he was saying he was gonna make him look like this Pokemon, you know. And so in his mind, he was making things, and it didn't look anything like the Pokemon, but in his mind, he was recreating it. So I think, you know, he had like different ideas going on. I remember the first one he did, which is that one right over there. All he did was I had these little pieces of porcelain that I would break up and use as teeth. Some of them were plates, and some of them I were actually rolled out a piece of porcelain and then fired it. And so he was just taking the teeth and sticking it in there, and that was all that was available. And then afterwards I asked him, do you want to stick something else in there? And he told me sticks and leaves, and I was like, well, you know, sticks and leaves are going to burn up, but I made a lot of sticks and leaves. This one's got leaves, and that one's got sticks, so just the coils. And so we did a lot like that. Then he wanted race cars, but I couldn't find any ceramic race cars, and I wasn't going to go through the trouble making a race car. then he wanted shoes. He wanted feet. And so I was looking for doll's feet, and I found the shoes. And so at a little antique store. And so he really liked the shoes, and then the doll parts, and then you know, I was always providing him with shards from broken pottery that we had around. And then the other thing is I went to San Francisco, and it's the year of the horse. This is 12 years ago, or 13 years, I guess it's 12 years ago. And then it's Roxanne, my daughter's born in the year of the horse, so I got her a bunch of these horses. And they're little porcelain horses, and I started stealing them from her. I thought, those will look good in a pot. So I started stealing her. Then I needed to replace them, and I found somebody who would sell me 12 dozen of them for discount. So we went through a lot of horses that year.
That's the Pokemon one.
That one right there? Yeah, see, now, I don't know. Doesn't look like Pokemon to me, but he wrote on the back, and if you look on the back of some of these, I mean, Joe could write his name. I mean, it was not great, but he had pretty good handwriting. Oh, there's a Joe, so you can see it's backwards J and a kind of an O and an E there. So he would write his name on a lot of them, but then sometimes he would just like write, he said he was writing his name in Chinese, is what he said he was doing. And he would do this kind of, you know, and I was like, all right, you know, I mean, I preferred it that it had his name on there, but I kind of like the Chinese writing too, or this quasi or make-believe Chinese writing. These are all fired in a salt kiln, and that's like where you throw the salt in the kiln, and it creates this atmospheric glaze. So you don't have to put a glaze on the piece. The salt itself, it breaks down in the heat, and it. I'm not remembering the chemical process, but it creates a glaze, and so we would make these, and then they would just let them dry after he was done, and then just stick them straight into the kiln. So I think that has something to do with it working so well, because I've had trouble with sticking stuff in there after that. I don't know, maybe it was the way Joe was sticking it in there. But a lot of times now I'm cutting like a little hole for a shard instead of just sticking it in, because I get more problems with cracking than we ever did with these. I think another thing about these that this is like moving from the next stage after Joe decided he was going to take his break, was I was struggling a lot with my epilepsy, and my memory was really bad. Partially it was due to my epilepsy, and partially it was due to the drugs that I was taking for my epilepsy. And I would there was times when I would go to walk the dog, and I would get lost in my neighborhood where I had been living for 7 or 8 years at the same house. And I felt like the work that came out of it for me was I was using it as kind of a journal, like a memory storage container, only it was all going on the outside, and the inside was empty, which I felt like was a good metaphor for my brain. There wasn't anything going on the inside, so I was storing all these memories on the outside so I could hold on to them. And I feel like that they've been like kind of a journal for me over the years, just write something on the back of a lot of them, and I always date them for the specific day. I always kind of had this dream of seeing them all sometime, but I know that's never will happen. You guys should ask some questions. Well, I want to say something else. Right now, I'm getting a lot of work done in my studio. I'm really being productive, and my health is improving, but it's still poor in a lot of ways. I probably spend easily more than half the day in bed because of pain. But I have really been productive in the studio. I get in a few hours, and I'm getting a lot done, and just really making me happy. And a lot of that is due, again, for somebody else giving me the inspiration and in the kind of the push through that door. And that's my friend Ed Bryan. He's a potter here, very good potter, and he's thrown for me in the past, thrown the forms for me because of my. I used to throw everything, but because of my brain damage, I have some struggles with throwing now. And Ed was
Man's
just
got the yips and a bad wrist.
Yeah. But so he would just bring me he's been bringing me all these things. He's like wet pieces to work with, and so I've just been looking at some. They're like not all head shaped, and so I'm looking at it and saying, well, what am I going to make out of this? And so it's really been a great inspiration. So I want to acknowledge Ed for helping me with that.
And how far developed are the shapes that Ed brings?
It's like just like a head. I mean, just like a pot. So thrown thrown forms. Like some of them are straight up and down. Some of them are, the way I make them, they're like upside down. So the head would be shaped like this, head and neck, like it's standing on his head. So just throw a pot like that. So he just gives me, he even fixed my wet box. It's a place where you can keep them wet for me, and built shells and stuff for it. And then, so he's just been filling that up for me. And there's something in there. Something in there all the time. And
I'm making forms, but I really feel like what I'm doing is making sheets of paper or stretching canvases. I'm doing blanks, and he's done some things with bodies. So I'm doing very neutral cylinder shapes or sort of bulbous, slightly tapering jar shapes that I'm seeing as torso, and then they go over to Peter and he reimagines them and there's something else.
Yeah,
which is just fine.
I turned this one big cylinder into 2 fish. So 2 big fish. So, and I flopped them on top of a head. So I got fish with a head with a fish on top of it.
See, I'm just making paper.
So I'm just really happy because I'm doing stuff that I haven't done before and I wouldn't have done. It is a reflection. Yes, Pat.
Joe, are you doing anything in the art world now?
Not really currently. I don't know. I kind of want to start, like, I'm working at Urban Outfitters over there, and I kind of want to start in fashion, so I might do something with that. But currently, no, I'm not working like on any art. But I do want to get back in the studio after the show, just like seeing stuff. I kind of want to like almost recreate pieces like this, just like start throwing stuff on faces. I don't know. I think it'd be cool to like see how different they are from my 4-year-old mind like now.
And the faces, these were, where Joe started. I have made, it's like complete face, but what he's done since then and made, I don't know, 50 of them at least, is make his own face and put stuff on it. So he's been doing that. He did that for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, 7 years.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but do you feel any difference between the kind of wild creativity, the naive craziness that you can do and be as a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old, plus, compared to the way you work now?
Yeah, like I feel like back then I always wanted my dad to make like snakes or stuff. There's a lot of pieces in here with like snakes on them or like little like figures. Like they're supposed to be people, but like it's just like arms and like a head, nothing detailed. But like now, like I remember recently on my other pieces, like I'd want like a couple, like 2 like ace cards from like a deck of cards, and like put it on there, and I'd ask like my dad to help me make those or something. So I feel like it's more like matured kind of to not like so simplistic, and now it's like more detailed like stuff I would put on it.
Yeah, when he first started to make snakes, it kind of just looked like little dog turds, It's like it just wasn't working out for him. So he when he wanted snakes, he'd ask me to make a snake. So I want a snake here. I want to just put a snake here. So he had like the typical kind of, I don't know, I won't say clumsy, but just not as experienced hands, and so he needed some help with to get some of his ideas across.
But Joe, you also told me once that it became more like work as you got older.
Yeah.
Because you weren't just sort of sticking stuff in there, but actually building a complete piece.
Yeah, like I add more like details, so like, cause I remember the snakes like originally like it's just like smooth and like nothing like really detailed to them, but like I remember like one day my dad like told me like if you get a straw like you can like put like scales on it basically if you like mark it, and so like I'd make everything like kind of more detailed than they originally were.
He's made some very, very detailed and sophisticated pieces, like when he was 10, 11, 12 years old. I have kept a few of those, not as many as I've kept of these, because I always had this dream for this. And the other ones, they sold. I'd sell them. And I'd give Joe money or buy him things with the money. Let him choose things that he wanted. And for this show here, we're gonna split the money that comes from the sales.
Just like
Just like old times.
Yes.
I think that many of us, when we see what you've created, are struck by the form. But I'm wondering, what do you think about the color? Is there any significance to the colors that you've chosen?
I remember, my dad was talking to someone, giving a tour on the show, and he would always say he would have buckets of blazes out, and instead of just choosing one color, I'd literally just put all the colors on them, and that's why something like that would turn out black almost on the face. But I remember I also wanted to do a lot of gold, and this piece over here has half of a gold face on it.
Yeah, well, they had this bronze glaze, which was really kind of nice, but if you mixed it with anything, it turned black. And Joe kind of was that little kid who's finger painting, and the finger painting, they get everything's all one color, and he would go at it with these brushes, and I think I pointed out to him that it was going to look different, but he liked it. It was as much process as I think product for him, or more so actually, more so. We probably made, I don't know, maybe, I would say less than 100 together like this in this first round, less than 100. And so a lot of them were sold over the years.
I think it was 22 or 23 in the show.
Yeah.
The rest was sold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I found another one at home. I was going through taking them off the shelves for the show, and I had almost all of them on one shelf, but then there was a couple other ones I pulled off other shelves, and I was cleaning today. Dusted the shelves. I was like, oh, yeah.
There is here the dust.
But it's not the one on the card.
No. That one got broken. That one actually, Joe made that one time when he was visiting me when I was teaching at Lexington Middle School. And so I made that face stick there, and he did all that on there. And it has kind of hard to see in the picture because it's so corroded from it, but there was a fork, and sometimes we would use forks for scoring, and he took the fork and just stabbed it in the forehead. And I was like, I don't know what that's going to do in the salt kiln, but it kind of just turned all black and bent down. I mean, it's still there. It's not really easy to see that it was a fork.
Corrode away the clay where it entered the head.
No, not so much. Not like this one or some of the other ones. Some of the screw. I think that the composition of the metal was is different. It was like screws and bolts. He liked to use those too, and those would. Not only did they get all corroded, but where it touched the clay, it was like the clay was eaten away by acid. Like this screw here is lying down on the nose. It was sticking up here in the head, but where it was sticking up there's a hole there now. The fumes in the salt kiln are extremely corrosive, poisonous, nasty, and things undergo a lot of kind of magical changes inside this.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I'm curious, do you look at a piece, Joe, and say, okay, I know what kind of shards I'm going to put on it, or do you just add as you go? And
I think whatever was available to me at that time is what I'd use.
Okay.
And then or if I thought of something that I wanted to use new. When I wanted to put sticks and leaves, I guess I just thought I wanted to try something different.
okay.
Whatever I wanted, I'd always ask him to make it.
Oh yeah, and the little men. I made a bunch of little men for him. And then when I was making the little men, he stuck some shards in some of the little men too. But there's a few of them around there. I just see one over there. It's got a little man up on the top of it up there. There's quite a few of those little guys around. The other day I was sitting in my studio and I was really tired. My back was hurting, so I stood up for a while because it's easier to work standing up sometimes. And I made a bunch of those little men again. And I hadn't made any of these since this round of them, so I'm kind of excited to think about what I'll do with them. Maybe I'll stick them all in one of those fish.
Jonah and the whale.
Yeah.
Do you remember what Pokemon you were trying to emulate?
Yeah, I think it was like Ekans, the snake Pokemon. There's a snake on the head, so that's the only thing I can get out of that. I don't know if like I was trying to change a face jug into a Pokemon, or like, because I remember Dad told me like I wanted a Pokemon, like a ceramic Pokemon to put on it, but there's no such thing really, or like plastic, so they just melt.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Joe, I don't think he wasn't really grasping that concept. See, he was thinking like I can stick my cars. He had a billion those little Hot Wheels Matchbox cars, yeah, and a lot of Pokemon. He thought he could just stick those in there, and I was like, no, that's not gonna work. That'll just disappear. There won't even be a trace.
What was the first Face Jug collaboration? What inspired you to get Joe involved in that?
It was a babysitting. Joe was in the studio with me. I was trying to throw some pots, and he wanted to go over to the Russell. We were at the ceramic studio at USC. I wasn't teaching there at the time, but Joe's mom was still teaching there, and so I was throwing these pots, and he wanted to go. We like to go to the Russell House because there was a bunch of different junk food in there he liked to eat. It was like, I forget what he was asking for that day. And I said, all right, we can go in a minute, just let me finish it. And he just kept asking me, and it was like he was getting restless. And then he was sitting in front of that face jug on the table, and then he said, can I stick some more teeth in this? And I was like, yes. Just like, yes, fine. Just let me finish these last couple pots. So he started sticking teeth, and he would be over there, and I couldn't see him from where I was. And then he said, can I stick one in the nose? I'm like, yeah, sure, stick one in the nose. And I said, can I stick one in the ear? And it's like, yeah, go ahead, And so it was kind of just so accidental how we got started. And it even sat on the shelf there for a few months because I didn't even really look at it. I was thinking of it as just kind of like, well, the price of babysitting. I gave up this face jug for the price of keeping Joe entertained for a little while. And then one day I was loading the kiln and I saw it sitting there and I thought, that's kind of interesting. And I stuck it in the kiln, and then it came out and I just started liking it more and more and more. And then it was not too long after that I asked Joe, I said, Joe, you want to make some more? And he's like, yeah. I think, like any little kid, if you got something that somebody's made something out of clay and it's still wet, and you got the opportunity to like poke at it and stick stuff in it. I mean, especially, my daughter Roxanne was not as, she was a little more, I won't say prissy, but she was never prissy, but she was like more precise. That's a much better word. Yeah, she did things much more precisely. But my two sons, both Tyler and Joe, they love to poke and stick and destroy, and it's like, I don't know, I won't say that it's overall a boy thing, but with my kids it was more of a boy thing.
Anybody have any more questions? I'm sure that Peter and Joe will hang around for a while so you can ask them something. But thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you being